Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or I should say good Sunday. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here on this Sunday, the 5th of September, 2021. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to tell you guys what, something could happen really big. Back in, let me see what year, it was 539 BCE, and Babylon was a giant empire of the ancient world. And they had this big city where the king was having a big party, and him and all of his viceroys and everything, they were all getting drunk and everything else. And what they didn't realize was that the Medes and Persians were making their way into the city using the sewers and aqueducts and stuff. And the whole empire fell in that one night. They killed the king and everything else of the empire, and the whole empire fell in one night. The fall of Babylon. It's a historical record that happened back in I think it was 539 BCE. But it's recorded on different on the cylinder. They recorded it, so we get to read what actually happened today, and it's actually in the Bible too. The fall of Babylon, and it's where we get the saying, "The handwriting's on the wall." You ever heard people say that saying, "The handwriting's on the wall"? That comes from the fall of Babylon. I see a situation here where our empire, the Fugazi empire that we've built, or I shouldn't say we've built, we haven't had anything to do with it. The big shots have built the Fugazi empire, which is all this paper money that's not really money. It has no intrinsic value whatever. And they've been hoarding it, and they've been getting really richer and richer and richer on it. Thousands of different entrepreneurs and stuff. It used to be there's millionaires on Earth, and then there became billionaires, and now they're heading to be trillionaires. They're gobbling up this Fugazi as fast as they can because it represents money. But it's not real money. And all of them have got it hoarded away. You see all these billionaires, big piles of it everywhere, this Fugazi. But how much of real things do they actually have? Yeah, on their account, all the digits that they've got, they've hoarded. But now, if a sudden realization starts to come amongst them as a consensus, that something's happening to their money, it's being undermined while they still have it in the bank account. They have accounts just like you guys have bank accounts. They have accounts too. And these people are not stupid people. They're very smart. But they're into the spigot of money that's coming from the Fed. And it's just been, over the last couple of years, it's just been a mad rush for them to accumulate as much of this Fugazi as they can get a hold of. But what if something happens, a sudden shift or a change in thinking where they realize that their money is actually in jeopardy because it's losing value? And so the first few of them start to say, hey, I better hedge against this if I want to keep my fortune. And they start to purchase something real with their money to get out of the dollar. Well, there's not that much out there, really, when you think about it. That maybe there's fine art, or maybe there's antique cars, and we've seen the price of these go way up, and also there's gold and silver, and there's other commodities. All of the commodities are real. Oil's real, the stock market, the equities, they represent the value behind real companies, so they're real too. But what isn't real? What's a Ponzi scheme? The bond market. None of it's real. It doesn't represent any real tangible item. It's just what's called bonds. Well, what are bonds? It's more Fugazi. It's not real. And the equities, they're already overpriced. Yes, they do represent real companies, but they're extremely overvalued right now. Whereas in other commodities, you could make the argument that perhaps they're even undervalued. Commodities like gold, silver, oil, even, considering how much oil is actually left in the world and how hard it is to get, it's becoming harder and harder. You have to spend more oil to get the oil out of the ground now. It's becoming a losing proposition, to tell you the truth. At a certain point, it's going to become a losing proposition where it costs you so much oil to get it out of the ground as it's worth. In other words, it'll cost you 1 barrel of oil to get the 1 barrel of oil out of the ground. All of the easy oil's gone. The Saudis, they had the biggest oil reserve on earth. And now I hear that they have to pressurize their wells, to get the oil up and out now, and they've tanked most of it. They got rid of most of it. They're still going by their old estimates of how much oil they have. But is that real, or is it 3/4 empty? You know what I mean? Canada's got a big oil reserve, but it costs a lot of money to get it. It's called tar sands, It costs a lot of money to extract the oil from the tar sands. So this is a commodity as well, oil. And, here what we're facing is a situation where this whole empire could fall in one day. And in fact, because of computers and the speed computers can analyze data and can settle a trade back and forth, it could fall in 1 hour. If the rich people make silver is the key to all this. Silver. This is the Achilles heel of the whole thing. Is if they run out. You see, for years here, what we've had mining supply has been keeping up with demand for silver. We've had, take an average year, for instance. Maybe they might have demand for 100 million ounces in the retail market to sell silver, and then industry might consume 600 or 700 million ounces to supply the industry for the whole world, and the silver they might produce just enough to fill all that from the mines. But suddenly, if investor demand and retail silver gets sold out because, and it's a sort of thing, guys. Listen, it's like the Medes and Persians sloshing in the gate, and everybody's in there partying. They think their empire is going to last forever. But what they don't know is the Medes and Persians are sloshing in the gate. What we might not know is right now we're sitting here talking about all these, what silver's going to do. Maybe it'll be smashed again and all this kind of thing. And what we might not know, what's the equivalent of the Medes and Persians sloshing in through the canals with their swords ready. The equivalent of that right now might be silver being purchased and being allocated and being hauled out of the warehouses right now. Might be the equivalent of that. And you say, well, how can that make our empire fall? It's simple. All of a sudden, it's one of those things where, you're sucking on a strawberry milkshake, and you're getting down near the bottom and you don't notice what's going on until you hear that gurgling sound. It runs out all of a sudden. And that's the way with the silver. You get some big players come in and they want to fill orders. When is it going to run out? It's going to run out all at once. Boom, run out, it's gone. Just like that. And then the word's going to go out. And then whatever's left, they're going to gobble it up. Maybe they will scour every little store that sells silver, every little coin store and everything, and they'll buy it all up right out from under with a phone call. Actually, it's not even a phone call, but it just be all sold. They can allocate it later, but it's all sold, gone. The whole world, instantaneously. And the word would go out across the internet, and you know how fast social media can spread the word in this day and age. So the silver's all gone. Everybody knows about it 15 minutes later. What happens next? Next is gold on the agenda, because the rich people, when they know the silver's gone, they're going to panic and they're going to want the gold. And believe me, there's so much fugazi out there to chase after this. These would be considered small markets. Even the gold market at $12 trillion, it can get cleared out with the amount of fugazi, that's the pressure that's behind all of this. And still be a lot of fugazi around in the system, wanting a home, wanting to get into something real before they get caught with a bunch of fugazi. And all of these rich people out there, they've all got their ill-gotten gains. Free money. They could borrow it for 0%. It's basically, they're in this pool of money where they're getting free money. It's free money. Well, if that money is even threatening to lose value, and lose value rather quickly, they have a very great desire then suddenly at that point to try to get into something that they can hold their value, just like you. It's no different. They don't want to lose their fortune. And this can lead to a mad panic. Mad rush within the system to get into something, anything real. Any hard, tangible assets or asset class. So where would they go if this happens? Well, it's pretty simple. Commodities, all of them, are real. They represent real things that actually exist in this world. But you got to actually have the commodity. I mean, if we're talking oil, you got to actually hold the actual oil, not just a contract that says, hey, this is oil. Paper's not oil. It's the same way with silver, same way with gold. You got to actually have the real thing. SLV is not silver. GLD is not gold. Commodities are real, exist in the real world, and you have to have the real thing. This could be a rush into commodities, but stocks have a certain amount of real behind them too. So it could be a rush into stocks and commodities. Mostly because the stocks are oversold, though. Mostly a rush into commodities, driving the commodity prices to unbelievable heights. Basically dumping all of their fiat into the system, chasing something to try to get a hold of something real while the fiat goes down. So how low could the fiat go? It could go to zero. And can you imagine the rich people panicking and trying to get out of something that's on its way to zero? What the panic's going to be like to buy something? So what's that going to do? They're all buying something. Well, it's going to drive the price up. And that's going to increase the panic on the other side, the people that are holding the fiat. So basically, it would be them buying everything that they could get their hands on with this ill-gotten gains that they've gotten over the last number of years. And the way I see this, and why I relate it to the fall of Babylon, is it's like a switch. It's the sort of thing where it's a complete sea change in the way people think. In Babylon that night, they were all having their party. Half of them were drunk. They were thinking Babylon could never fall. It was an impenetrable city, big high walls, the Babylon Gate, and everything else. Nebuchadnezzar and all their servants and everything. They all thought that they were like. And then all of a sudden, that one night while they were sleeping, everything changed. The city fell, and it was over. It's just a complete paradigm shift in the way people think. And we see movement toward that. People are starting to get nervous. Hey, we see inflation. And what is that? That's our purchasing power being lost. And we get the first companies coming in like Palantir buying a big pallet of gold to try to hedge against this. Well, you know, that idea or concept, everything can suddenly turn around is what I'm telling you guys. And it's prepared, it's ready to happen. The whole thing is structured and ready, and it's in place for this to actually happen. And it all hinges on silver. How much silver do they actually have out there, and how many players will suddenly want that silver? And so what we could be looking at is a Hunt Brothers situation. But back when the Hunt Brothers situation actually happened, we had the Hunts. They were it. That was it. Billionaires. They wanted the corner of the silver market, and they were doing it all by themselves. They were shut down because it was just two guys. But what about when it's an army out there of different corporations and different rich people and so on? If it's an army out there, what do they do then? How do you shut down an army that wants silver? And so instead of just two men trying to corner the silver market, you might get an army of rich people. As richer than the Hunt Brothers. An army of them, though. And what do you do about that? And what would be their next target? Gold. This whole thing could fall down. I'm just coming to the realization, you know, in the last 24 hours, that this whole thing could fall in 1 hour. And treasuries, everything could just be such a rapid movement of the whole thing that what would happen next? If all the silver was gone, guys, the real physical silver, what would the paper do? It's very interesting for me. What would the price of the paper silver do then? Would it go up? Would it go down? Would it just instantly go to being worthless? What exactly would happen with... If you guys got that figured out, maybe some of the people that listen to my show are paper traders of silver. Maybe you got that better figured out than me, exactly what the silver price would do if there was no underlying asset anymore. If it was just basically gone and there were so many orders for it piled up ahead that wanted it. Unfilled orders. I mean, just a pile of... every silver company on earth will have a big pile of unfilled orders that want it. There's none actually available. And there's none available into the foreseeable future even. So we're not taking any further orders for it. What would that mean for the paper silver price? What would actually happen to the paper short contracts that represent the real underlying asset? If there is no underlying asset, it doesn't exist on this planet anymore. It exists only in the ground, and it's all been spoken for 1,000 times over. And they might not even fill those contracts. In other words, it's been sold 1,000 times over, but the guys that actually have it, the silver miners, might just sit the silver in the corner and say, hey, we're not even giving it into the market. We want it for ourselves. It's too precious now. Suddenly too precious. What happens to the whole world? Can we say instant hyperinflation? And the silver market could trigger all of this. But it's not like it hasn't been coming for a long time. It's not like we haven't seen this coming. But this is kind of new to me. The concept of this whole thing could fall like the Babylon fell. An instantaneous sort of a thing. Where one day everybody's arguing, well, will the silver price go up $1 or whatever, you know, and we're in that paradigm or that way of thinking, and then all of a sudden the next day everything is just basically shut down because something big happened in the system. This system's unstable. We all know it's unstable. It's been unstable for a long time. We all know that the fundamentals behind the whole system is gold and silver. It's the only real thing of value behind the entire system. Cryptocurrencies are just another version of Fugazi. They don't exist in the real world. They're just digits on a computer screen. All of them. What's real? What can you actually hold in your hand that has no counterparty risk and is the only asset behind the entire world's global financial system that has any actual value? That and the companies, of course. What a house of cards they've built. And it's all built on a Ponzi scheme. We know these facts. These facts could be leading to a conclusion. And they are leading to a conclusion. And just it's a new way of thinking for me that conclusion, because of computer trading, could be something that happens very, very fast. Thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.